Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that never wanted a regular type life. I'm your host, Cisco from Misfit Minded.
And I'm your other host, Shani B.
Each episode, we check the gate and break down movies of all genres, from major franchises to indie darlings. Today, we're talking about a massive, massive movie we've been wanting to do since we started the show. And that is 1995's Heat, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary. And if that wasn't enough, they have officially announced Heat 2 is coming. This has
Ooh.
been long rumored. I didn't ever think it would happen. Then they made a book. Now Leo's involved. It's gonna be
When Leo
sick.
gets involved, things
That's
start to happen.
usually exactly. Yeah, I think they talked about that on the big picture, that like he is probably a reason why it got greenlit, to be
Yeah,
honest.
he's
Like
still like the box office movie star we're like always talking about. Like, I still feel like he has the pull.
yeah. And I mean, I didn't talk about it yet, but One Battle After Another, if you haven't seen that yet, I haven't seen a lot of new movies, but like that's my movie of 2025. Now that this is going to be our last episode this year, go see
Yes,
that. I was thinking a lot of Heat, honestly, of that movie while watching Heat, and I'll talk about certain like why,
the
reasons why.
parallels. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I don't know. I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. But before we get into all that, we lost a legend this week, and that
Super sad
is
news.
Rob Reiner and his wife. They were both murdered in their own home. I just wanted to talk about this because this one, it just wasn't that we lost Rob Reiner, which would have been sad enough in its own right,
Right,
because his dad, Carl Reiner, lived to like almost 100. And
right.
I guess I just, in my head, I'm like, he's going to do the same. Like, he never stopped. You know what I
He
mean? Like,
should
he was
have.
still showing up and stuff. And like, for him to be taken out like this, it was such a bummer this week. Like, and I've seen a lot of beautiful tributes and videos posting. So I guess I just wanted to get your perspective, because we've never done a Rob Reiner movie. Now
I
with this open
know.
format, we possibly could, you
We
know?
absolutely will,
Yeah.
because, he has a prolific career. He's like, one of those people we all know is a fantastic director and an artist for sure, but just kind of gets, because he was also an actor, I feel like he pays that tax of like not necessarily being taken seriously as a filmmaker. And that's just like such a wrong read. I agree. I feel like, I've been talking with a lot of people about this, both in my work and in my personal life, because it's such a devastating thing to happen, right? So incredibly unexpected. And, murder is always shocking, doesn't really matter how it happens. But I think that shock is exacerbated by the amazing career he's had and how many people have been touched by his work.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I mean, he had so many different careers that he could have just coasted off of, honestly. Like, he could have just done All in the Family and just
Yep.
done that, and like he would have been good. He could have just done like the movies he directed, and he could have just retired and coasted off that. And
Yep.
then you start thinking like he was just in the newest season of The Bear, and it was like delightful whenever he showed up. I was like,
Yeah.
I hope he always, and Wolf of Wall Street, which is a little bit older, but we were just talking about
Good
that
at
movie in
everything.
our Martin Scorsese conversation. So like
Yep.
he just was always present, and that, I think that's what makes it so difficult. And like you said, like to be murdered and like by his own son, like it's just
Right.
it's almost like unbelievable. But he is just one of those filmmakers. Like I'm just gonna read this run. A lot of people talk about like best runs of
Mm-hmm.
directors and stuff like that, which I always think is interesting, because you're gonna make bad movies as a director. But
Right.
I would
Everyone
argue
does.
that this run that he had in the 80s and 90s, you can put that up there with
It's pretty
anybody.
solid.
So
Yes.
here we go. His first movie, This is Spinal Tap. Again, could have just retired off of that. That is such a great
Seriously.
comedy. It reinvented the way we think of like the mockumentary style.
It basically laid a standard down that didn't exist because
Yes.
he treated that movie with so much respect that the satire, like, I think people missed a little bit. And now, we know why, because of all of the purposeful direction that was actually going into it.
And so yeah, exactly. Like The Office, all these shows that use that style to this day, he was the first to do that in 1984, which is
Right.
incredible. 85, The Sure Thing, that's the only one I haven't seen. But
Same. Trying
this
to find it.
this run right here though, Stand By Me in '86, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's incredible.
Yes, we've got some physical media that's like around for my kid to grab, and on a daily basis goes out and pulls out the Stand By Me DVD, and I just sort of say to her, I'm like, "Oh, you visiting the boys?"
Can vividly
Because
remember my first time seeing Stand By Me at a family friend's
epic.
house and just being like, what is this? Like, this is
Yeah,
profound. This is speaking
yeah.
to me on a kid level in a way that I haven't experienced yet. It was crazy.
So,
Um,
so true. Yeah, him treating his subjects, like meaning the characters he works with a level of dignity, I think is like one of my biggest takeaways from his movies. They feel so authentic, including Stand By Me, because they treated the children in that movie with a kind of dignity that like we as children viewers need in order to connect to the material, in order to like truly be moved by the art.
and that could have been just good enough, but then, so as a kid, it works on that level. I watched it maybe 2017, 2018. I went to a Stephen King festival, saw it in a
Mm,
theater, in a packed theater. That was probably the most packed out of all the movies they showed, honestly, the Stand By Me
wow.
one.
Hmm.
And to see that with kids in the theater too, like parents bringing their own kids, and then seeing
Yes.
that as an adult now was like, it works even better. Like now I'm getting it from the grown up protagonist perspective, and it's just
That's
like,
the real litmus test of a good
it's so
movie.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah, is like,
it's
does it apply to your life at each stage? And if the answer is yes, then it is, an all-time great
yeah, and
movie.
who can forget that closing line, like, we never get friends like we had when we were 13. I'm like, no, I haven't. Like, I still haven't.
No,
You know what I mean? Like,
I am
it's so
talking about
true.
it with people constantly,
Yeah.
right?
Uh, Follows that up with The Princess Bride, arguably like one of the best fantasy movies ever made.
Yes.
When Harry Met Sally, one of the best rom-coms ever made in
Yeah, like a
89.
pattern of sort of like saying, here's the standard that everyone should shoot for,
Yes.
and I'm not sure that anyone ever could really achieve it aside from him.
Misery in 1990, and then A
Nothing
Few Good
better.
Men in 1992. That is, wow. Like, what an incredible run. And like, what's even more impressive, different genres. They're not the
Yes.
same at all, other than, like you
Nope.
said, treating the subjects with respect. Even Misery, even Kathy Bates
Yes.
in Misery gets treated
Yes.
like an actual person and not just like a very stereotypical villain. Like,
Right.
I think he understands that. They were talking about this on Paul Scheer's podcast too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
had a Rob Reiner
Unspooled.
tribute, and I thought what they were saying about how his films kind of reflect his own thinking of his career too. That like, you're not gonna box me into this funny actor. Like, I
Right.
can do different things. And then every time he made a hit movie, they wanted him to just do that again, and he said,
Yep.
"No, you're not gonna box me in as a director either." And he
Yeah.
just proved it time and time again.
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it's like why it's that thing of like, when you're a multi-talented artist in entertainment, entertainment wants everything to be easy. So they often try to put you into these boxes. And I think like the true artists are the ones that, always escape the box or pick the box for themselves, like choosing the genre of horror, choosing the genre of romantic comedies, and then, designing something new within there that, frankly, it's the authenticity of that I think sticks with me, right? Like I
Yes.
was rewatching some of the scenes from When Harry Met Sally and just listening to the dialogue and being like, this is just also such a good script. So there's something about how, he doesn't just make a movie
That's
because
Nora
they told
Ephron,
him to
right?
make a movie. Yeah.
Right, on the script, yeah.
But you know
And
what I mean? Like he
yes,
he also collaborates and works with other talented people because, he is someone who people want to work with and he works well and, pays service to every piece
that
of the
was
production.
that was another piece they talked about on the Unspooled. It was the podcast. If you guys want to listen to their, I thought they did a really good tribute to a whole episode
They're the
on
best.
it, and him and Amy Nicholson, Paul Scheer, and they talked about too that piece you're talking about of like how the people he worked with loved that experience. He views them as family. Even making This Is Spinal Tap 2, which is going to be his last movie that he directed, he's bringing back
Wild.
all the guys, and it's like, bringing the band back together, basically, like,
Yes.
I miss you guys. I miss working with you guys. Let's make another one. And I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to now, just to see like what he's going
Yeah,
to
it's
do
it's
differently now. Like, I'm not expecting it to be the same as This Is Spinal Tap because it's
of
been so many
course.
years and all the actors are in different stages of their careers as well.
It's pretty wild, for his career as a director to sort of begin and end in the same, like with the
Exactly.
same
Full
property.
circle.
Like that's a really, wild circumstance. And yeah, I think, just why his movies will live on in such a way because I think, he, similar to like Diane Keaton, was like one of our dads.
We lost
You know
so
what I
many
mean?
this year, I feel like so many legends. It's crazy. Like,
Well, and especially people that I feel like, really did shepherd us in some way. Like when they played parental figures, that was a really meaningful performance of theirs. When they made films about family dynamics, those things, were very emotionally affecting. And, is part of why I'm so shocked with everything that's going on and part of why like I want to find as many opportunities as possible to talk about his great work and am stoked that we have, this new model so that we can get
I
there, right?
know.
Like we have talked about other directors more than once. We can do the same here because to your point, it's not like his movies are all the same.
Yeah, like Robert Redford's another one that earlier this year we lost. Like all these institutions of
They're
American
a
cinema,
hot dad. He's more like a hot dad, but still, right? Still has it, still
but
bringing it.
institutionally, like did so much for film and like
Yes.
even like causes. Like I didn't know Rob Reiner's resume with like fighting for gay rights. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I had no
Yep.
idea. Or his history with like Seinfeld, which is like one of my favorite shows. Like he's the only reason
Wild.
that Seinfeld exists because of Castle Rock. You know,
Yep.
his like, the his production company.
The
So
pilot for Happy Days. Like, what?
so it does, it's not just us projecting all this stuff on him. It's like that's why so many people are posting all these videos and all these things because he made an impact across like so many different people's
Yes.
lives in so many different ways. Like and that's, I think
That's why. Go ahead.
that's what separates him, I think, from other people in this industry. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that's why culture is such a powerful thing, right? Because like it can make so many different people feel seen by the same thing. And that's just a unique kind of connection that, filmmakers and folks who make TV and music and books, like they help us all connect to each other in such a meaningful way. So to your point, I think that's why, it is also lasting.
Yeah,
Um,
when I saw Stand By Me as a kid, I didn't know like I wanted to write or be a writer, but like Gordy is a writer in that, and I was like,
mhm.
I'm, I'm feeling a lot of the same feelings that Gordy is feeling. You know what I mean? So like, I want to be a
Yes.
writer too. It was like that, and like that could have been the Stephen King piece of it too, maybe, but it was just him
It's
putting that on the screen though, like translating it in a way that hadn't been like Stephen King. There's that story that when he first screened it for him, he left the room because he was crying, and he came back and said, "That's the best adaptation of one of my films like ever." And
Yeah, I was gonna
there's
say he's done 2, right? Like,
yeah,
are there other directors that have done 2 separate Stephen
Frank
King
Darabont.
adaptations? Okay,
Frank
okay,
Darabont's done a few.
okay.
But yeah, Darabont's kind of like the go-to, I guess, King person.
King guy? Okay.
Like or he was at least. But I mean, he's up there. I mean, those are two of the best ones still. Misery and Stand By Me. You can't, you know what I mean?
It's true. It's true.
You can't
Yeah, the
deny.
rewatchability of his career is something too, and I think is tied into all of this, right? Like his films are accessible, his characters feel like they reflect us for real, and the whole production is done with dignity. So when you watch his movies, it feels like a movie. We talk a lot about how modern films don't always feel like the kind of sweeping movie experience that we're used to, especially like 80s, 90s vibes, and his movies are all like that.
Yeah, and Mike Flanagan. I was trying to think of the other one.
There
He's
we
the
go.
new King guy that's done a couple now. That
That's right.
he's kind of the go-to guy now because he just gets Stephen King really well.
We gotta do one of his
Um,
movies too.
oh,
God, there's
that
so many
yeah,
people
for
to
sure.
do.
But perfect segue you just set up for me here of making things feel real. I would say Heat is one of the most realistic crime movies ever, and
Epic.
that is why it has so much staying power. So let's get into it. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen Heat yet, what are you doing? First of all, stop this podcast, go watch Heat. Uh,
Yep. We'll see you in a
trust
couple
us,
of hours.
trust us. But it's about a group of high-end professional thieves who start to feel the heat from the LAPD when they unknowingly leave a verbal clue at their latest heist.
Oh,
that's a weird summary, but I mean, I guess that's it, you know?
yeah, we could have
I
probably
guess.
tightened it. But yeah, I guess like that when upon rewatch, when you're like looking for those details, it is interesting to be like, yeah, that's part of again what makes it real is that like the undoing to most stories, like the Achilles heel of most things is something so small that you couldn't have even tried to
It's
avoid
slick.
because you'd never see
The
it
guy
coming.
says slick. Tom Sizemore
Sizemore,
says
baby.
slick, and that's what. Well, that and Wayne Grill. We'll get into that. We'll get into these guys. So
Yes, yes.
some last minute details before we break down everything. The movie was made for 60 million, grossed a total of 67 million in the US. It's not great, but not horrible either. But
Didn't see that coming though,
I
huh?
know.
Okay, okay.
It did better, I think, globally probably, and like to this day, I think
In the long term.
in the culture. I mean, the rewatchables have done like what 4 Heat podcasts now just on the one movie. It's like
Seriously.
it's probably their defining movie of their podcast. So that's something. And it currently holds an 84% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, a little bit higher. I think it was like 94% audience.
Okay.
So given all of that, I want to spend the rest of the time we have. I want to break down what sets this movie apart because it's held like we said in such high. I keep getting even before we said we are going to do this movie. I keep getting videos in my algorithm on TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram, everything of
Mhm.
Heat. Like
Mhm.
it has been 20 years. Why is this the one crime movie that people resonate with? Why do you think?
I mean, I think it's because it feels like the most grounded one. Every single actor and performance in this movie feels really authentic and grounded. And I do think that the movies with the most authentic characters stick with us, even if they have, very wild storylines like, there's a bunch of heists taking place or a lot of violence. There's something about how you're like, it like grips you when you watch this movie because the music is pulling you in and the filmmaking is pulling you in and the people feel really real. I also think like low key crime movies are always enduring because we really love villains, and this movie has some phenomenal anti heroes, we'll call them, because,
True,
they're not exactly villainous, although they're very villainous. But I think
but
that's
it's
part of what makes it stick with people is like they feel reflected in these folks, even though we're not all bank robbers, you know?
hmm. I think you hit on a lot of pieces I want to talk about. I do think though, even beyond like this being a crime movie, because there's a lot of those, like this sets a template. Like we talked about template movies before.
Yeah.
Like I would say like in our previous iteration of the show, like John Wick, a guy
Yes.
who's been wronged, who has to go on this revenge tour. I mean, how many Jason Statham movies are they doing now of that? You could
Yes.
say Taken, I guess, is a little bit in there too.
Yep.
But yeah, all those template movies that they're like, oh, this works. Let's try this now. And I think Heat, there's the DNA of Heat is in so many,
Yes.
not even just crime movies. I mean, The Dark Knight, Den of Thieves,
Yep.
The Town,
Yes.
like not even just ripping off the template, but like Den of Thieves is probably the most egregious. Like the opening
Yeah.
heist is the same. There's a shootout in broad daylight at the end.
Yep.
Like
Yep. Yeah. Through the
they
streets. Mm-hmm.
and just like The Town had that one,
Yep.
with Jeremy Renner too. So I think stylistically this one it kind of paved the way of like, okay, you said gripping. I agree. I think from that opening set piece, it grips you, and
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, wait, who are these guys? Like, am I supposed to be rooting for these guys? Like, it really doles out information in pieces, like little
Yes.
pieces, and I think that's part of it, and also our two co-leads of De Niro and
Mm-hmm.
Pacino, who had never been on screen before. People forget that this was the first
Yeah, because
time.
they had played father and son, of course, but
Exactly.
not, together.
He played a young Vito Corleone, De Niro.
Right.
So we got the flashbacks with him. So they're in the same movie, but never on
Right.
the same scene. And so I mean, they both can carry a movie by themselves, but I think you're watching them in their process, basically people at the top of their game on
Yes.
the cop side and the criminal side. And so I think you're right. People do like to associate with criminals and things like that. So you get that here. They
Yep.
also like cop movies, cop procedurals, and they like to see cops bust the criminals. So I think you
Mhm.
get like the best of both worlds here, you know?
You do. You do. And yeah, I think like that two sides of the same coin thing, when that's a part of stories, I think
There's a
people
flip
really,
side to that
latch
coin.
onto that too. Yeah. Yes. Because, like I think these guys are part of what I also love about this movie is their relationship. The dynamic
Mm,
between them is one of the things I'm always thinking of when I'm reminded of this movie, just because they're basically the same man, but they kind of flip back and forth in like righteousness or something. So it's like
mm.
they're both kind of flawed, but we know that like one of them has the badge, so like we're supposed to root for him. But every time I rewatch this, I am often being like, Just leave, please,
Oh, I
just
know.
leave." And he won't. He doesn't. He can't. I guess that's part of it too, is that like he can't actually relinquish control. And he tries. He meets a woman who maybe makes him think he could, but he can't. And Pacino's just sort of like, I accept that I can't, and I just get the women in my life to be okay with it.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's a big piece of this too, is that they're so similar, and like the scenes that they have on their own are so similar. Like you get
Epic.
the family scene with De Niro and all of his guys at the restaurant, and
Love
then
it.
a few scenes later you get the family scene with Pacino and his guys that are trying to bust them.
Yeah.
You get Pacino or De Niro finding a woman, kind of like falling in love with her, and trying to navigate that, and then Pacino's kind of falling out of love with this in his marriage. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah, they both love their job more than the
more
women in their
than
life.
and you can never fully, unless you're fully vulnerable and fully, emotionally available for your partner, that's always going to be a barrier for you. Like, and again, they both, I think, get there at the end. Pacino straight up just tells her, I want to
Right.
say that we can still be together, but I'm going to be the way I am. And
Yeah.
De Niro, again, and those are the best crime movies too, when you're like, don't go in there, like, don't do that. Like, and so he could have just had that fantasy vacation life with this woman he just met, but
So
can't,
close.
he can't do it. He has
Yeah.
to get revenge for, why do you think he does it? I don't know.
I think
It,
it's because he, like who his reputation, I think, is all he is, right? Like
hmm,
he has to hide his identity in order to get away with what he's doing. And so he can't really be seen. And so I think he lost the ability to feel what it's like to be seen, which is part of why I think his relationship with Brenneman is like so powerful when you watch it. And also like what makes it unique is that like most women that are like, fooling around with dangerous guys are attracted to the danger.
hmm,
And in this dynamic, you can see that she's not attracted to the danger. It makes her very uncomfortable. She's just incredibly naive. And
yes.
he sort of thinks that that naivete might save him, I think. But he can't actually give up what is his true identity, which is that like he's good at this thing, that his rep is don't fuck with him. And if he leaves and this guy gets away with fucking with him, his whole identity is gone.
I think there's that the one scene at the end too, when she's thinking about going with him or not, I think was revealing to me on this watch, where
Mhm.
she's kind of like, explain yourself, basically, like, you killed innocent people to rob a bank, and he's like, I can't, I want to get out, but I can't do it alone or whatever. And I
Right.
was like, would that be a good enough reason, to go like with someone, like, is because he says one of the first things he says to her is, I'm not lonely, I'm alone. There's a
Right.
difference.
Right.
I don't think, I think he's kind of full of shit on that one.
I
I
think
think
he's wrong.
he
Yeah.
just doesn't want to do it alone. I think he's just done at this, you don't know how many years he's been doing this, but he's a little older in this, De Niro. You can tell
Yeah.
like he's probably been doing this for years, and he's kind
Yep.
of
I mean,
just
he's
tired
got
of it.
the empty, beautiful home, right? Like
Mhm.
he essentially they're showing he's been successful. The only thing he doesn't have is like an actual life. And they're showing how, like in those mirrored dinner scenes, I
Mhm.
think he's looking around and seeing like I used to have these guys, and that was part of what didn't make me feel so
Mm.
lonely. But now these guys, they have families, they have
Yes.
lives, they have other priorities. And Val Kilmer straight up is like, yo, she's my priority.
Yep.
I love the scene when he goes over to mess with Ashley Judd and he's like, you're going to give him one more chance. Okay. You hear me? Like he's sort of, he just wants to tell
Yeah.
everybody what to do because that's what makes him feel
You know what that
safest.
reminded me of?
And you can't do that in relationships.
On this watch too, that reminded me a lot of, maybe because I just rewatched it for the Scorsese thing, but like, Paul Sorvino in Goodfellas. like how
Yes.
everyone he works for him is like family, like, and he's like, no drugs, like,
That's right. That's right. Yep.
and he's trying to control them, but like as what's his name says in here, it's a free country, man. Like people are gonna do what
And
they
that
want to do.
Well, that's exactly
John
it, right?
Voight.
Like people, right? People are going to do what they want to do, and I think that's part of it too. Is that he wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and he tried to convince her of this. But I think that's why her performance always stands out to me because she's able to strike something different than like Ashley Judd's naivete, right? Like she's naive that Val Kilmer will ever change, and
This
but she's
gambling addict.
attracted to what
Yeah.
he's, she likes that he's a little bit dangerous. Like there is a chemistry and a desire linked to that, and that just like doesn't exist in the dynamic between De Niro
Yeah.
and his girl. That's why I think he even uses the phrase with Pacino, yeah, I have a woman, like describing her this way
I checked that box
already
off my
shows
list of like things I need to
exactly.
do.
Exactly. It shows that like he's not really satisfied. He is lonely, but to your point, he doesn't know how to actually be vulnerable.
Can I ask you something about the dinner scene too? Because I noticed something I don't think I've ever thought about before too. The Pacino one, when
Uh-huh.
he's like making out with his wife, and they're kind of like, at this point, it feels like all they have is this sexual chemistry.
Pretty much.
That's
Yeah.
keeping the marriage afloat at this point. And
Literally.
they're like making out pretty close, and then like there's a moment where she's saying, I like the bestial side of you or something like that. They press closer together, and then they both start laughing or something like that. Is that Pacino getting a boner, like against her? That's how I read that scene.
I need to rewatch it now. I
Re-
need to go back and
re-
rewatch that scene. I'm
it's
not sure.
because it's the way it's edited is so weird, because it's like, yeah, they're making out, that would have been enough, but they have this like little conversation. She says, I like the bestial side of you. They
Yep.
press their bodies closer together, and then he like something happens, they both start laughing, and then he gets the pager and he goes, this better be the end of the world or something like
S- You're probably right,
you know what I
right?
mean?
Like I think his avenue of connection is also sex, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's like, part of what De Niro is dealing with too. So it has to be that like in their relationship, the things that always show them being closer have to do with arousal. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, like I'd love to know if there was maybe a little bit more to that would have made it easier for us to get it, rather than just sort of like insinuating it. But I think it's like a pretty good assumption to
And
make. I
I'm not
think
like,
you're
this is
probably
not
right.
me like trying to overanalyze this. This is
Mm-mm.
me really noticing that this time, and like so many podcasts have talked about Heat. I've seen this movie a dozen times. This is what you do when you watch a movie so many times. You know what I mean?
Yes, you
Like,
start to notice all kinds of extra
extra
details.
stuff that you didn't notice before.
Yes.
So that
Yeah,
was
it's
just
so
one thing I
funny.
noticed this time.
It's funny to me too in those scenes, like how the cops really seem more like the degenerate crew. Like the criminal crew
Mm,
seems like they're really like kind of
professional.
chill. Yeah, they're
Yes.
chill and relaxed. They're like, oh, this job went well. Like we love our wives, we love our daughters. Like we're getting jewelry for them because we like, are having these families. And the cops are just like really drunk. They're like making a mess. They're hooking up in front of each other.
I do like
Just like all stuff you'd expect the criminals to do.
the Den of Thieves ripoff when they did that, when Gerard Butler goes into the Benihana. That is, again, I like Den of Thieves, just to be clear. I do like
Same.
that movie, but they are just straight up ripping off. it's,
Well, it's
it's
sort of like,
it's pretty blatant.
maybe there's something to that too, that it's like that is what people would really do. And by
Hmm.
creating a movie that sort of shows that, you gave license to say that, like, yeah, a lot of crews behave this way. I just think that, like, what sets Heat apart is some of these little nuances, right? Some of these, like, true personal moments that are actually happening between the actors and the characters when they're, saying things that aren't written, right? Like what you're talking about and the way the filmmaking is also telling the story is why we can look at something like a little detail like this and wonder, oh, is that supposed to mean that? Because I do feel like that's one of my favorite pieces of rewatching this, is that the filmmaking is always also telling the same
Yeah,
story that the like script is telling, that the actors
perfect.
are, engaging in.
Perfect segue where I wanted to go next. I think another key ingredient to this magical movie is Michael Mann. And it's hilarious that his last name is Mann, because I don't think there's anybody better that understands the male loneliness epidemic that
Yes.
people are always, whining about. than Michael Mann, and he was doing it in '95.
I was gonna say he was trying to bring light to this story because I rewatched I saw his like what is it called? Manhunter? It's like his
Yeah,
Red Dragon, maybe, or something like that. No, it's not Red
Tom
Dragon.
Noonan, Tom
Yeah, it's
Noonan, who
like
plays the killer in Manhunter, is in this movie. He's the guy who tells De Niro about the bank.
the best, the
Yeah.
best. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like he has from the jump sort of said, "Hey, we're not really looking at the loneliness that men experience from the right lens," because I think they were always sort of showing loneliness in lots of women around, but like longing looks.
Hmm.
And in this movie, and in all of Michael Mann's movies, I think he loves to like leave the camera on the male characters and let you just watch them so sink into a kind of despair. Like some of the shots of Pacino just driving through the night, he is like getting lost in the darkness, and that is both visually happening and in the performance. And like nobody does that like Michael Mann.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and the closest, if you're interested in other work from Mann that is similar to Heat, Thief is very similar, about a bank
Mm,
robber with
yep,
James Caan, great Chicago movie.
love it.
Highly recommend that one too. I think too, like he's so interested in, like you said, not the my life is falling apart type of male loneliness. He's more interested in the I'm putting my entire life into my work. And in
Yes.
his case, the ones that he likes are the criminals mostly, the criminals. And that is interesting because that's not something we deal with on our everyday life. So to see these guys treat it like an actual professional job and not just like the
Yes.
stereotypical bank robbers that are just doing it because they want money,
Right,
you
out of
know.
desperation, right? These dudes are not doing this because they're desperate. Like they are
Yeah,
good to go already. They're doing this because it's their job.
it's their job. And I mean, there's different reasons for it. Like we can talk about some of the actors too. I mean,
We have to.
Tom Sizemore, like
Classic.
he's gets some of the best lines in this movie. I think, to me the action is the juice. We used to use
Mm,
that in our
we
copy for
did.
our pre like he just does. I think all of the supporting cast is another reason why this movie is so good, because there's not one role that goes like
No.
under the radar that you're like, I could have,
Nope.
it may be, if I had to do like one critique, it might be a little too long. Like there is some fat on here, like especially in the third act, I would say
Yeah.
maybe.
When they're
But
trying to
like,
fill out Dennis Haysbert's storyline, which I like actually appreciate because I think it's like, fair and important to sort of
hmm
say, dudes like this, they don't stand a chance of escaping this world because there's always a way back in. There's always
the system
exactly.
is oppressing
Exactly.
him, we see. And I
Mhm.
love that scene too, where again, there's such profound scenes with the smallest characters in here, which should be just like forgettable scenes. But like, I always remember that scene where he's like breaking down because his woman is saying, "I'm proud of you." And he's
Yeah.
like, as a man, like, that's something a lot of people can relate to, that like, I have this job I hate,
Yep.
but I'm doing it to support my family. And you hope that you have a partner that understands that and is like
Right.
supportive of that. And there's just so much in that, like his performance, her performance in that is like so beautiful to me. And then it makes it so heartbreaking when he dies during
Yes.
in the next few scenes.
It's
It's
true. It's
And
true. And
every character
Trejo?
gets that. Every
Yeah.
character, like Trejo too, who's barely in the
Exactly.
movie,
Yes,
but
but, like, when he is reliable as always, and then, like, that, like, last scene where De Niro,
oh,
like, must confront that everything he loves will die because he lives so dangerously, I feel
hmm
like is a really, like, poignant moment when he has to sort of, like, be the one who is the executioner, because I think the story is saying that, like, by being the one who runs this crew, he is marching all of these men to their death.
And I think there's a lot of restraint too in that death scene, because it is, again, he's playing it for drama, for emotion.
Yep.
It's not like he
Yep.
cuts away when De Niro puts him out of his misery. We don't get to see that. And like, for good reason. It's very sad. Like his whole family got, who knows, tortured, beaten to
Yes.
death. And so
So
I,
fucked
I
up.
actually just got a TikTok that was, again, my algorithm loves Heat, where Trejo was teaching someone how to do the death scene. and,
Let's
and he
go.
was like, "You're not doing it right. You're not doing it right." I had to do it, man.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
guess,
like
like,
that
it's
pain.
that thing of, I think, directors like Michael Mann also, they create a space where, actors who maybe, wouldn't have pushed themselves otherwise will push themselves. Like,
Hmm.
that's why we get this, like, amazing performance out of Trejo. That's why we're getting something like this out of even Ashley Judd and Val Kilmer. Like, we're getting them pushing themselves to a kind of extent that, like, everyone feels really desperate. And I think that desperation, that like seeping desperation in the background is part of what is so gripping when, these people are in the most important moments of their life and we're going to maybe watch them lose.
Yeah, as she, I again, that's another part that could have been nothing, the Ashley Judd part, but I
Yep.
always remember the scene where she
Queen.
tells, him to not come in the house, Val Kilmer, and he has to. There's so much good face acting in this because it's like
Yes.
I was rewatching that scene and where he's in pain because he got shot. Val Kilmer, you see that on his face.
Yep.
He's like looking around in the dark trying to see, and then he sees her, and his whole face lights up like
Hmm.
I'm here, I made it. And then she's crying, stone faced, tells him to leave, and he has to like swallow that, not
Yep.
react. And then like there's so much of that in all of these great character actors that like again just sells the emotion of it to characters that barely get any screen time. Like that's why you get those character actors because they can deliver
Yes.
that, you know?
Well, and that's what Michael Mann is after, right? Like
Hmm.
he is after making sure that the reason the world feels so real is because every single person that comes into it is a real person, even if they're only going
Hmm.
to deliver so many lines. And I think like that's another like piece of this that I feel like maybe people forget to talk about enough. But like Natalie Portman's tiny arc in here is an important one too, because it's like showing sort of like the ripple effect damage of like not being actually emotionally available for your family, right? Like we don't really see the ripple effect of like how that affects the next generation. We just get a taste of it from Pacino, but like, she is so good and what's happening with her in the background, you're like, "Holy shit, like
I'm gonna be honest
this
though, that is kind of what I was talking about with the
that's
fat.
the
Like I
fat.
do
You don't
think
like that part?"
I do think that it just I think you know what it is? Like I think she's so good, Natalie Portman, that we kind
She
of
is.
accept it. But like I think we got enough of the failing marriage. You know what I mean? Because it's putting more on Pacino's life than De Niro's at that point. And it would have
Yeah, I
been
guess they're
more
trying to
of a better
say.
contrast if it was Pacino and his girl, De Niro and his girl. Because you know what
Yeah,
I
if the
mean?
mirror was tighter.
Yeah.
I guess just, this time around I was thinking of it because I was thinking more about like their families when they were in the scene and I was noticing that like Sizemore I think has kids or
He
something like
does.
that.
Yeah.
And Val Kilmer's having a kid. So I was just thinking so much more sort of about like the children in the
The
stories
family
this time
aspect.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was thinking about, her and what's going on. Like the initial scene when she's like freaking out about the barrettes or something like
Oh
that,
yeah.
it's sort of like through my work, I'm like, yeah, that's like the end of the world to a
Mm-hmm.
preteen person.
True.
And she is able to figure out a way to like get that across. And I do feel like I like the setup of Pacino being like, in the end of the movie, being like to her actual dad, like, you're such a piece of shit for what you've done
Mm.
to her. He's able to like be really righteous, very similar to the way that De Niro's like yelling at Ashley Judd, right? It's like, who are you to tell anybody
Yeah.
what to do? Yeah, maybe you're like a little bit better because you, I guess, like are purposeful with the love you try to show. But I do feel like that piece is like getting to be like, he's still like a hero of some kind.
Well,
So I think that's why they keep it in there.
when the characters are believable, I think this movie does a good job, like where you can feel a certain type of way about a character and it flips on an instant, and
Yes.
like and you accept that, and like and the action I think feels realistic in that way where it's not glorified. It's not like this looks cool. It's like people are getting blood squibbed to like in cars, and like you
Yes.
see the crowds that are like screaming and like Pacino, get down everybody,
Yes, and you
it's
can
like
hear the
chaos.
echo, the rippling echo through the city buildings when the
Yeah.
guns are going off.
I
Like the
guess.
sound design. Oh my
Oh
God.
yeah, it's definitely like I think of the Dark Knight trying to do the same thing in that opening bank heist
Yep. Yep.
scene. It's very similar, but like I was thinking of Sizemore. Again, you think he's a family guy. He kind of gave him away with Slick, so that's kind of like
Yep.
this guy is blowing it a little bit. But I still kind of like him because he's got the action is the juice. When he
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
at that guy in the restaurant, it gives him the look like buddy, you better mind your own business. Like, he has these little quirks that I love. As
Yep.
soon as he picks up that little girl and starts firing on people, I'm like, no, you're
That's right.
done. You're
The
done. You
Yeah,
have to
this movie
go.
does a
Like,
really good job of being like, "Maybe these guys are okay," and
yeah.
then reminding you like, "No, that's the kind of the trap of this type
Yep.
of person." 'Cause they never really find out that he's the one that generated the lead by using Slick, because they don't,
Mhm.
they just know that that guy turned them in, but they don't know
Yeah.
that, like, that that's part of this at
And
all.
even Wayne Girl, I would say, who is like the villain of this movie, I would
Yeah.
like, quote unquote. It's like, and if you didn't realize that, not only did he fuck up their original robbery by
He's
killing somebody, he's also a Nazi.
a
He's
serial
also a
killer.
serial
Yeah.
killer who targets women. And it's like, okay, yeah, this guy. Ooh, so again, that's kind of pushing you to be like, yeah, maybe De Niro, maybe he should get rid of this guy. Like, the streets would be safer without this guy.
Yeah, it's like a
you
big
know?
collection of like, these are the worst guys you can think of, but I'm gonna
Yep.
try to make you be like, but here's the best of the worst, right? Like, I'm
Mm,
gonna try to show you these things.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like maybe that's where some of the fat was for me. Like I appreciate the
Oh,
power
the
of
Wayne
like
Girl
a
stuff, you're saying.
yeah, of like,
Okay.
the murder taking place and like the mother reacting to it and stuff like this.
That scene is
Because I
so
think like
powerful. Oh, I
it
know.
yeah, it's what
Yeah.
you're talking about where like I think that that's supposed to be about how even though De Niro definitely is like a co-lead in terms of the way this works, the story is supposed to be about how like Pacino is the way he is because he has to be so cold and hard in order to go and
That's
deal
why
with
that
this.
scene's in there. I think that's the only
Exactly.
reason, because it never connects back to like Wayne
No.
Girl's the one who did this murder.
Right. Right.
It's so I think that's the only reason, is because when he goes home to his wife and he's like, "I'm sorry if the damn chicken got cold,"
Yeah.
he's like,
He is so erratic. Yeah, that's
yeah,
something I wanted to mention was like, I'm afraid of both of these men, but I'm way more
hmm
afraid of Pacino, and I
Pacino.
should feel safer
Yeah,
because
I
he's
was
the
gonna.
law
Okay,
enforcement
let's
one.
get into that, because that's another thing why I think this movie has lasted, because of Pacino's performance. It's an interesting, uh, time period in his career. He had just won the Oscar a few years earlier for Scent of a Woman, and that
Mhm.
kind of opened the door to loud Pacino. And like,
Yeah,
so he's
yeah.
doing it. He feels comfortable now. He got an award for it. And so people are always quoting him from this movie. Like, again, I get that on my Instagram and stuff all the time. She's got a great ass, and like, you can get killed for walking your doggy. Like, all those
Yes.
lines that he
So
just
good.
puts a little extra on it. And I don't know. I again, on rewatch, I've always felt okay with it. Like, I
Mhm.
know Pacino after the movie was like, well, he was originally supposed to be a cocaine addict, and that's why I was putting that on there. And I was like, all right, bro, like, you didn't have to.
I mean, I think I
you,
I buy it because I feel like if you have a job like this, you go
you have to
crazy.
stay up.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and
I
you have
think
to.
you go insane if you have this job. Like, one of the main folks who get the diagnosis of PTSD are folks who work in law enforcement because they, like, truly, go like, their brain gets broken with the
Hmm.
horrifying things they have to treat normal and they have to be present with and, see that, like, he's trying to protect his family from, but we're also understanding that, like, you can't protect people from something so invasive because he's just wearing it all over himself.
And I think it's purposeful. Like, again, I was trying to pay extra attention that De Niro also, you can, I didn't know like a better term, but like, peacocks, like when he needs to, like,
Yes.
he can on a dime, when he needs to like punch somebody out or like shoot somebody, he does it. And
Yes.
that's his form of like aggro,
Yes,
male aggression
snapping.
or whatever. And
Mhm.
Pacino's is just more, barking at people,
Right,
and like,
intimidation,
yeah.
by, like, physical intimidation,
So I
and
think it still fits the narrative. I don't think it doesn't take me out. Like, it's they're a little funny, but like, I'm okay with him being like a little humor in this movie. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Because there's some dark scenes in this movie.
Well, and I think that that's part of it too, right? Like, I think humor is a kind of coping skill, right? If
Hmm.
you can make light of something, if you can make something silly, then it doesn't have to be so horrifying,
When
and so
he
I do
catches the wife
feel
cheating, and he's like, "I said sit down." You know?
Yes.
You can bone my wife, but you're not watching my
My
TV.
television. That's right. That's right. You will not watch my television. Yeah. I feel like they're both really helping you understand what happens to a man in these positions, and I appreciate the loudness of it because I do feel like police that are getting a little too hot like feel more erratic, right? They do more impulsive, erratic things, and that's sort of like the anti De Niro, right? He's
Hmm.
like he can snap on a dime, but he's thinking, right? He is making calculated choices.
Yes.
The only time he does something because his emotions lead him there, he fucking gets killed,
And we we
right?
we should talk about the confrontation because I think that scene is incredible.
Yes.
Again, the first time these two are on screen, this was like the Avengers for me when I first saw this. I was like, two of the best actors on screen for the first time, and like there was so much lore around the scene, and I think that's a scene where Pacino could have overdone it, but it's so quiet and like so understated from both sides, and it's like
Yes.
I can't look away when I'm watching that scene. It's such a it's kind of
Yes.
like the thesis for everything for both characters, like you never wanted a regular type life. He says, what is that, barbecues and ball games, like he gets a little humor, De Niro gets a little humor, and
It's true.
they're both just like, yeah, I guess we're just the same person, just on opposite sides, and we're accepting the fact that if it comes down to it, you're my way, I'm gonna have to kill you, and that.
Because I think they both feel like they are unique in their
Hmm.
loneliness and experience, and I think meeting one another and challenging one another kind of
Hmm.
shows them they're not. And I
Yeah.
love how that diner scene that initially takes place is like the ending scene is basically like the physical version of that. Because when they're in the restaurant, they're like having a tete-a-tete, they're kind of feeling each
Feeling each
other
other
out,
out. But
seeing,
then
what's going on,
De
and then they
Niro
have to use that
discloses
same
information
sense.
though that like you wouldn't expect. You know what I mean? Like he feels comfortable enough to be like, I got a woman.
Yeah,
Like you said,
unafraid.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Pacino, De Niro already knows this, but he's like disclosing about his marriage. And like I'm on my third to
Yeah.
failing marriage, and so like they are. And I think that's a key to the male loneliness epidemic. You have to reach out to people. Like
You can't help it. You
you
can't
can't
help
go
it.
through this world alone. You can't. And like I think Mann, again, better than anybody like that I can think of as a director, just really keys in on that fact that like it doesn't matter what you do as a job or how good you are at it, there's going to
Yes.
be a hole in you if you're not
If you
connecting
don't
with
have
somebody on
everything.
some level. Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Hmm.
why I see them as this like physical representative because to your point, De Niro, when you shine the light on him, he shares more information than you'd expect. And he's doing it with this smirk, like thinking, oh yeah, I'll tell you all this stuff and
His
it won't matter.
his
But
smirking
then
in this, I love his
epic.
smirk acting. Like
Next
my
level.
favorite one. Okay, I wanted to talk about this. I'm glad you brought it up. When
Yeah.
Pacino and the guys go to that shipping yard and they're like chasing down the lead, and
Yep.
Pacino's like, they're looking at us. We
They
got
got
made,
us.
fellas. Yeah, okay, motherfucker. And then it cuts to De Niro, and he's behind the camera, just like smirking and like laughing silently.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Like they're having
he
fun. They are having. There is a part of them. I like that they show that like they're enjoying this cat and mouse game. There's a piece of
yes,
that
yes.
each of them have.
Well, and that's it, right? Like the thrill part, I think, is part of it too, is that like he is losing kind of like the thrill pieces until this job, brings the heat a little bit. And like that final
Mm,
shot when the light is shined on him and that's what lets Pacino see him and, kill him. I think
yeah.
that's part of, what's happening in the diner too, is that like when you put the right light on him, you can see him for what he is and you can nail him.
You can't
And
hide
that's
in the
kind
shadows
of
anymore.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. Like that's part of why this movie is so good because it is making sure that the visual storytelling is as tight as the performances and the physical storytelling.
Yeah, and
Um,
like again, for anybody that thinks they're like we're overreading this movie, the song title that over the closing credits by Moby is "God Moving Over the Face of the Waters."
let's go.
That is the level of like epic emotion they want you to feel as you're
Perfect.
watching these two men hold each other. You know what I mean? Like, and I think
Yes,
it achieves it
yes.
in a
Oh,
not a lot of people can say that. You know what I mean? But this movie, I think, is the rare one that does achieve those type of that level of extreme melodrama and emotion, which I'm not usually a fan of, but like they just hit the right amount of
when it
action and
works.
and doing it. Yeah.
Well, I guess like
So,
that's the thing too is when you don't treat a melodramatic situation as melodramatic,
mhm.
something really amazing can happen. And I think that's what happened
I
here.
just
Is
think
it
for
like,
me, what gets in the way is it always feel artificial to me. Some like
mm,
it's like they're overplaying it, or I'm just like, oh
yes,
come on, this would never. People don't act like this, or and so the realism part really sells that to me. Where I'm
yep,
like, I believe both sides. Like, and this was loosely based on a real police officer and somebody he was chasing, going after. Like, loose,
wow,
yeah, that was on the
makes
bonus
sense.
features. So I buy it. You know what I mean? I buy into it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, same, same. Yeah, I feel like there are just a lot of memorable moments in this, and I most of them have to do with the fact that like there is a shot in these scenes or an angle that always stands out to me.
De
Like
Niro
even
looking over
from
the water. I mean, come
yes,
on.
the
Yeah.
racked focus. Like, thank you for there ever being racked focus because it's so good and we need more of it today. But like that shot, the shot of him initially stealing the ambulance that's like from above. So it's like this
Mm.
bird's eye view of like, oh, he fades completely into the frame here because no one even sees that he's there. The when he's coming after Fichtner because he knows Fichtner like tried to have him killed at the drive-in
Yep.
and he sort of has a soft smirk on, but like the camera slowly pushes on him, not on Fichtner in the reverse, but
Yeah.
only on him as he's like, I am zeroing in on you, and
Mhm.
like you're not gonna get away from me.
Yeah, those intense
Um,
silent scenes from De Niro, I think, are some of my favorites, honestly, when I rewatch like,
stellar.
I love the one where the cops are scoping out them trying to prep the next heist, I think it is, like, they're trying to
That's right.
steal,
Yeah,
and,
get some kits or something.
De Niro is in that one shadowy corner, and you see him through the, like, night
His body
vision
heat.
TV screen, and he looks
Yeah.
like an animal, like, he looks like an animal that you're like hunting, like, that's basically what it is,
And he
and
is.
when the cop reveals that they're in that van across, he goes, again, light switch, straight into action, we gotta go, and they
Yep.
leave, like, and that's the discipline, that's what he says, that if you feel the heat coming around the corner, 30 seconds flat, you have to do it, and
You gotta get out of there.
he
Yes.
does. He does. He leaves the woman too at the end. It's ugh, again,
And the
it's
look on her
tragic.
face. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just every moment of this movie could be memorable because it feels really intentional. So I'm just like really glad that we were able to do this movie, that like it
Yeah.
sort of is part of the beginning of us expanding our discussions to include,
We could have done
movies
this
that
in
are
our
going to give us
last
more.
iteration. Like we would have done this eventually,
For
you know what I
sure,
mean?
but we
But
would have
like,
been thinking so much more about, like, leading with the action, and I
mhm,
love that today we were talking more about sort of, like, the human relationships and the
the
people
psychology,
within
the
the action.
psychology of it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Because I think
because the
that's
action fucking speaks for itself,
the action
right?
is the juice. And we know that. But like,
Exactly.
yeah, I think again, you rewatch these movies and you can read them like on a deeper level. And I think there's certain directors like the auteur theory that it works better than others, you know, and I
Mhm.
do think Michael Mann, his obsession with these characters and these type of
Yes.
is reflected in the text because the characters are also obsessed in their work. You know what I mean? Like so it's
His
so
best
cool to read it in
movies
that way,
are
you know?
when yeah, his best movies are when he's able to tell the story of that type of man, right? We did
Yeah.
Collateral, we've seen that man. Manhunter, he has that. Thief, he has that,
Collateral is
like
also very similar in that you got Tom Cruise, a professional in this underground world, and
mhm.
Jamie Foxx, who is a regular guy, and conflict, you know, those two worlds merging together, you know.
It's true. Yeah, it's like,
So
the that unique vision is an interesting part of, getting into more straightforward filmmaking stuff, even if there are elements of action. So I'm excited to, keep exploring
I
because I do
know,
feel
me
like
too.
Michael Mann leans action. This is a nice,
I mean,
him
I
being
like
like, just because
Ferrari.
I
I thought
lean
Ferrari was
doesn't
pretty
mean
good. You know,
that's true.
he's still
That's true.
doing what he likes to do, and that's all you can ask from these auteurs. Whatever their interests are, I'm
Yeah, to
always gonna
follow
watch.
them.
So
That's when the best movies come out. That's where it
so
is.
yeah, as we wrap up here, any final thoughts on the movie Heat?
No, no.
No.
I'll say John Voight's hilarious long hair mustache
Yes.
situation is too good.
Val Kilmer can pull off the ponytail. I'm not sure about John Voight. You know, like
Though it's not for a lack of trying. I feel
I
like at
know
this time especially, he was just looking really slimy. But I will say his like showing up performance to be like, yeah, I'm here. I'm like really serious. Like
he's such a
there's
reliable exposition machine. That's
yes,
basically what he is in here.
yes.
You know what I mean? He's just
Yeah.
so good at that.
Yeah, and particularly on this rewatch, I was like, "Oh man, this is the
Yeah.
guy." Like, if they were to make like in Heat 2, this character, this kind of
A younger
guy, I
version?
want to see
That could be
more of
cool.
this guy, right? Like,
This
how
I
does he
called
know
him,
all this shit? Like, where's he
I
coming up
called
with
him
these
the
ideas?
score maker in my notes. That's all I could describe,
He
you know what I
is
mean?
the
He
score
makes the scores
maker.
happen.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is the score maker. So yeah, can't forget to mention him.
I'll just
What about
say
you?
I'll just say that, this is just an unimpeachable movie. I call it the best bank robbing movie ever made. There's ones that I really like, but like this one just hits both sides, both
Perfectly.
sides of the coin that we talked about. It delivers on the action piece and so many set pieces.
Yep.
It delivers on the emotion and the psychology to read deeper if you want to. It's
Hmm.
just pure entertainment if you want to just enjoy it on that level too. And you got two of the best actors of their generation going toe to toe, like what, and character actors too that are doing scenes with them. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yeah, nailing
so
it. Fully
that's
nailing it.
that's worth the price of admission alone. So even all these years later, there's still layers being peeled back. When Kilmer passed, I
Yes.
posted that scene of him and Ashley Judd. Like this is one of my go-tos for so many of the actors and the director involved. So
I mean, it's just the best. I was
yeah.
exhausted before I had to queue this up so I could watch it. And then, like,
Hmm.
10 minutes in, I was like, oh, I'm trying to go for a run, even. I'm
I know.
so juiced up from this. So,
Jacked up.
yeah, this is just such a good movie. I'm so, so glad we did it.
Me too.
Um, all
Yeah.
right. I think that wraps it up for us. Let's remind the people where they can find us.
Get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow me on all the socials at misfit_minded and my website at misfitminded.com.
So you never miss a rip. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and please leave a positive review. 5 stars is the dream. You can follow me on all the socials personally at It's Me, Shani B.
We'll be back in the new year covering more of our favorites, hopefully your favorites. So happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs. Until then.
Why'd I get mixed up with that bitch?
Because she got a great ass. And you got your head all the way up it.